Hello and welcome to the series of Global Perspectives Unleashed, the podcast where we talk about the diverse experiences of international students studying at the State Islamic University, Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. I'm your host, Hasina, Wardak. Our first episode features Wafika Rakib, a student from South Africa. Today, we will discuss her experiences, the cultural differences, and the highlights of studying in a new country. Before we jump into our first episode, let's talk a bit about what inspired us to start this podcast. We believe that every international student has a unique story to tell, whether it's overcoming challenges, embracing new cultures, or navigating the academic landscape. These experiences are worth sharing. We're super excited to bring you stories, insights, and laughter from students who have embarked on this incredible journey of studying abroad. Welcome by the podcast, Wafika.
Thank you for having me today.
How are you?
I'm very well, a bit tired from the day that I've had, but I'm well.
How are you feeling being in today's podcast as a guest?
Well, I'm quite excited to share my experiences about studying overseas here in Indonesia. Yeah.
All right. So, Wafika, since you're from South Africa, I want to ask you, most people mistake you as a Palestinian or an Iraqi or Syrian. Why is that so? Is it because you have a different skin color, or because when we think about South African people, we think of them as black-skinned people? So can you share a bit about that with us?
Well, you see, Hasina, this is a very big misconception that a lot of Indonesian people have about South African people. You know, I came to Indonesia for the first time in 2019, and I've been here for about 4 years now. And I've traveled back and forth between my home country and Indonesia for about 4 years, but obviously, majority of my time I've been living in Indonesia. And within that time, I've obviously met a lot of new people. I've become acquainted with a lot of new people, and I've befriended a lot of new people as well. And with those interactions comes the obvious question of, Wafiko, what country are you from? And when I would answer that I'm from South Africa, they would be in such awe, because in their mind, how is it possible for a South African person to be light skin color? And this is actually something that Indonesians shouldn't really think, that South Africans are only dark of complexion, because when you visit South Africa, you will meet that the population in South Africa is so diverse. Yes, you will meet people that are dark of complexion, but you will also meet people who are light-skinned, who are white. You will also meet people who are colored. Now, colored people are people who are mixed race. So they might be a mixture of white and black. There might be a mixture of white and Indian or black, or Indonesian and Dutch, So these people are called the colored people. And usually they are identified by their caramelized skin color, just a bit like mine. Okay? So these are what you call the colored people. Now, I know the term colored in, the countries like America, it's deemed as a
Black
racial.
people.
Yeah, it's a racial term to use, and it's not permissible to use the term. But in South Africa, using the term colored and referring to someone as colored, it is permissible, because it's actually an identity that people go by. Okay? So in South Africa, you won't only find, dark of complexion skin people who have dark of complexion skin, but you will also find your white people, your colored people, and besides them, you can also find Chinese people over there. So the population within South Africa is so diverse. Now, a fun fact about South Africa as well is that it is famously known as the Rainbow Nation. And do you know why?
Why?
Why? Because exactly similar to a rainbow, a rainbow has the different colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Similarly to the rainbow is the people of South Africa, because you find your black, your white, your colored, your Chinese, and people from different races. So that is why South Africa is famously known as the Rainbow Nation. So the next time any Indonesian who is watching this video, when they visit South Africa, or they come across or meet a South African person, they shouldn't think like, oh, why is this person white? Or things like that, you know, because South Africa, the population in South Africa is very diverse.
All right, thank you, Wafiko. So let's get into the questions. First, we'll talk about your background and culture. Can you share a bit about your background and cultural influences?
So you see, Hasina, I come from South Africa, right? And
Yes.
ever since I came to Indonesia, there's a question that I get a lot from Indonesian people as well. Besides, you know, me being a bit lighter skinned than your average African person. And this question is, Wafiko, are you Muslim?
Mhm.
Even though I wear the hijab, they would ask me, am I Muslim? Because I come from South Africa. A lot of Indonesian people think that there are not a lot of Muslim people in South Africa, or there are no Muslim people in South Africa at all. But this is not true, because there are communities of Muslim people residing in South Africa. Do you know that according to statistics, about 68% of the population in South Africa is Christian, right?
Yes.
Only 2% of the population in South Africa is Muslim. There is 1.5% of the population that is Hindu, and then the rest of the percentage of the population is taken up by the different other religions, right? Now, if you look at the the Muslim religion within South Africa, you will notice that it's not the minority, neither is it the majority, but it is a growing religion, with a rapidly growing religion within South Africa. Now, what is interesting is about the Muslim community and the religion of Islam within South Africa is that the religion of Islam was brought to South Africa by Indonesian people. You know, now I'm not sure, or I'm pretty sure that a lot of the Indonesian viewers will be familiarized with the name Sheikh Yusuf Al-Makassari. Sheikh Yusuf Al-Makassari was an Indonesian person who was captured, taken into exile, and he was incarcerated on a small island called Ceylon, which is now today known as Sri Lanka. While he was incarcerated on that island, he wrote various books and kitabs on the Islamic religion, right? Then it was only in 1695 when he was taken from the Ceylon island, which is now called Sri Lanka. He was taken from there and he was taken to South Africa, to a city called Cape Town, where he was incarcerated on a small farm called Zanfleet, which is now known as Makassar. So while he was on the farm in Zanfleet, incarcerated in Makassar, being there, he established the religion of Islam within the small community that he resided in, right? And he influenced a lot of people to follow the religion of Islam. Now, he was only able to work on this establishment of the religion and also influence the people to follow the religion of Islam and believe within a duration of about 5 to 4 years, because he passed away in 1699. So it was only within a short period of time that he was able to influence people to follow the religion of Islam, right? But he was a very, very learned scholar. And even today, you can find his maqam in Cape Town in the area of Makassar. And a lot of people visit his maqam to pay their respects. And they visit his maqam very regularly to pay their respects. Okay? So, Sheikh Yusuf al-Makassari died in 1699, right? So, more or less 100 years after him came another scholar, and this scholar's name was Imam Abdullah bin Qadi Abdul Salam. So Sheikh Yusuf al-Makassari is famously known as one of the first founding fathers of Islam in Cape Town. Imam Abdullah bin Qadi Abdul Salam is known as the second founding father of the religion of Islam in South Africa. Now, Imam Abdullah bin Qadi Abdul Salam was also an Indonesian person. You know, he lived within the region of Maluku Utara, but more specifically on the island of Tidore. You know, so he married into royal family, and he also had children with his wife in Tidore. Now, within this period, the Dutch was obviously colonizing many other countries, as well as certain parts of Indonesia, including Maluku Utara. Now, those islands within Maluku Utara was famously known as the Spice Islands. They were famously known for these spices such as cengkit and nutmeg. And so the Dutch wanted to colonize and take over those islands and those lands. And obviously there were people who were resisting this action that the Dutch was taking towards the islands, right? And Imam Abdullah bin Qadi Abdul Salam was one of those people who resisted this action. And as a result, he was also captured, he was taken into exile, and he was incarcerated in South Africa on the island of Robben Island. And he was incarcerated he was captured and brought to the island of Robben Island, and he was incarcerated over there in 1780. So while he was incarcerated on Robben Island, he wrote various copies of the Quran from memory. He wrote various kitabs and books on Tawheed and Fiqh. And when he was released from being incarcerated in 1792, he moved from Robben Island to the mainland, which was called Cape Town. And there he established the first mosque, which is now known as the Awal Mosque, meaning the first mosque. And he established madrasas over there. Within those infrastructures, such as the mosque and the madrasas, he was obviously the teacher who taught people about Islam and the religion of Islam, using obviously the Quran that he wrote and the books that he also wrote while he was incarcerated on the island. So this is actually some interesting facts about how Islam had become established within South Africa, and how Tuan Guru institutionalized the religion within the country of South Africa, but specifically also in the city of Cape Town. So Tuan Guru's maqam, you can still find it in Cape Town. It's very close to the mosque and the madrasa, and a lot of people also frequently visit his maqam to pay their respects. Now, if you look at a lot of the Muslim people in South Africa, also myself, I am sixth generation descendant from Tuan Guru, right? So that is also one of the reasons why I decided to study at this university. Now, something interesting about the lineage of Tuan Guru is also that Tuan Guru was the son of Qadi Abdul Salam. Qadi Abdul Salam was the son of Umar Rahmat, and Umar Rahmat is descendant from Syarif Hidayatullah, also known as Sunan Gunung Jati, also known as Said Syarif Hidayatullah, who was one of the 9 Wali Songo who brought Islam to Indonesia. And Syarif Hidayatullah is the name of our university. So obviously the name of our university was taken from this well-known and influential person that brought Islam, one of the influential people who brought Islam to Indonesia as well. So you could say that my family lineage links up to the reason why I am here also today, studying at this university.
Wow, thank you so much, Wafika. That was a very interesting story or history that you shared with us. How has your cultural background shaped your perspective on Islam?
I've grown up in an Islamic household. So me and my siblings or my cousins, we've grown up with studying the Quran, learning how to recite Quran, studying fiqh, ibadah, tafsir hadith, all those things. So my perspective, it was always Islamic. Everything was done in an
Islamic way.
Islamic way. So it wasn't really difficult. Even when I came to Indonesia, it wasn't very difficult for me to change into this environment or adapt to this environment and adapt to the people that I was living amongst in Indonesia, because the culture within South Africa, especially the Islamic culture within South Africa and the Islamic culture within Indonesia, it's very, very similar, right? Especially because obviously Islam was brought to the Cape or South Africa by Indonesian people. So the culture, so to say, is not very, very different.
Yes, and I've said this before in my other podcast that Indonesian people are very welcoming to foreigners, whether you're from different faiths or different cultural backgrounds. And we feel so comfortable over here no matter what happens, whether, wearing Islamic clothes. Everyone is the same over here. And whether it's the religious practices that we follow as well. So let's talk about your academic journey. What led you to pursue studies in English education?
Well, you see, when I was in high school, right, in my final year of high school, throughout my schooling career, I always enjoyed the subject of English, right? I enjoyed reading books, analyzing the stories, also reading poems and analyzing the stories. So I had a passion for it. I enjoyed learning about it. And even after school, even though I didn't immediately enter into university, I did Islamic studies, right? And afterwards, I came to Indonesia to study, Bahasa Indonesian and travel a bit around Indonesia. But within that time period, I was also asked by a lot of Indonesian educators to teach English at these schools. And I see this is something very, very famous, or that Indonesian educators like to do, is ask international students who speak English to teach English to the students in the educational institutions, or even just visit these schools to give inspirational talks, but obviously using English to inspire the students to speak English. Because English is a global language, and we need to learn English in order to communicate or socialize or interact with anyone around the world, right? So obviously I did this. I've taught a bit within Indonesian schools. I've given inspirational talks within Indonesian educational institutions, and I found that I had a passion for this, a passion for teaching, and also I loved learning English within school. So the two, it clicked, it went together. And um, when it was time for me to apply at university for my undergraduate studies, I thought that this would be the perfect opportunity to apply to become an educator, but also major in English education. So this is why I chose to become an English educator.
So first, when you came to Indonesia, you were in the Dharma Siswa program,
Yes,
right?
I was in Dharma Siswa.
And then after you finished your Dharma Siswa program, because you liked it so much, you decided to study at the State Islamic University.
Yes.
All right. How does the education system in your home country differ from the one over here?
Wow, it actually differs very much, the education system within South Africa and in Indonesia. I think the education system within Indonesia is very religiously based. Within South Africa, a lot of the schools that we attend are Christian schools, right? Or it's mixed schools with people of different religions. So Islam is not really something that we study in school. There's a very small minority of Islamic educational institutions within South Africa, but it's not a lot. Okay, majority of it is Christian educational institutions. Now, for us Muslims, especially me, when I attended primary school, high school, I attended a Christian educational institution, right? It was of mixed religion. So you found your Christians, you found Hindu people, you found Muslim people, so we were mixed. And so Islamic education was something that I didn't receive at my schools. So when I wanted to learn about Islam and study Islam, I had to do it part-time. So I would go to school in the morning until afternoon, about 3 o'clock. Afterwards, I would go to an Islamic school to learn how to recite Quran or learn about my religion, right? So that is how the educational system within Indonesia and South Africa differs. Because within Indonesia, a lot of the time the schools, they integrate Islamic education inside the educational curriculum within the educational institution. I mean, if we look at university right now, university over here at Syarif Hidayatullah, we have various universities. You have the Al-Azhar University, which is an Islamic university. We have Win Syarif Hidayatullah, which is an Islamic university. Within these universities, they provide faculties or courses of study, such as the medical faculty, the psychology faculty, the international relations faculty, right? The educational faculty as well. But while you are studying like me, while I am studying within that educational faculty, taking the major of English, I obviously study my subjects such as morphology, psychology, phonology, all those things. But we also study Islamic subjects such as pendidikan akhlak, pendidikan tafsir hadith, pendidikan bahasa Arab, itu ibadat dan qiraat. So we study those subjects alongside the subjects that we need to take in order to become professionals in whichever faculty, whichever career path we choose to follow, right? But even within the subjects such as psychology that I mentioned, they teach it from an Islamic perspective. So the root of the education is Islam, and everything just spirals or grows from that. But within South Africa, you will see that the universities, it is just, you study psychology, you study the subjects of psychology. You study medicine, you study the subjects of medicine. There's no Islamic
It's pure
integration.
academic based.
Yes, it's purely academic based. Yes, and there's not a lot of there is actually no Islamic university within South Africa. There are very small institutions that provide Islamic education, but those institutions purely provide Islamic subjects, Islamic education.
So
it's like
there's
Quran.
never a combination
Yeah,
of
there's never
both.
a combination.
You either study the Islamic studies or you either study the academic based.
Yeah, so it's like you have to choose between the two, right?
Yes.
Whereas over here, you can combine the two.
Yes. All right. Let's talk about your challenges and adaptation. What challenges did you face when adapting to a new academic and cultural environment?
Well, I think the most obvious challenge would be the language barrier of me having to learn Bahasa Indonesia. Also, I think having to make friends within Indonesia when you start studying at the university, it becomes challenging because you come into a country that you are not familiarized with. You are leaving everything you've ever known within your home country and you're moving to a country wherein you know absolutely nothing. So when it comes to the language Bahasa Indonesian, I obviously took Bahasa Indonesian classes where I learned the language for about 10 months. I took classes and afterwards I just started learning with having conversation with my friends and people that I meet. So I would pick up little words and I would start using it in my conversation. When it came to friends at university, um, it was kind of difficult to make friends because it wasn't easy for me to socialize within the friendship groups, right? It wasn't easy for me to socialize because socializing within Indonesia in a friend circle is very different from socializing in South Africa within your group of friends. So it was quite difficult for me. But as time went on, I became very used to the environment when it comes to socializing with people. I came to know how to socialize with these people and how to fit into the group of friends. So after a while it becomes easy, but at the beginning it can be very difficult.
Okay, so next we want to talk about cultural exchange. So Wafika told us that she came to Indonesia as a cultural exchange program of Dharma Siswa, and students from abroad come to Indonesia to study the language. But most of the time, they just stay here and continue their university to get their bachelor degree. And my first podcast, we had a student from Turkmenistan, Parahat Atabayev, who told us that he also came to Indonesia as a Dharma Siswa program student, and at the end, because he liked it so much over here, he continued to study at Indonesia. All right. Have you participated in any cultural exchange activities, and how have they impacted you?
Well, you see, Hasina, the only cultural exchange activity that I've really participated in was the Dharma Siswa. Like you said, with the Dharma Siswa scholarship program, you get to study Bahasa Indonesian, right? But it is not only Bahasa Indonesian. There are a variety of subjects that you are able to choose from. You know, you are able to study Bahasa Indonesian, the language. You are able to study Indonesia Budaya, the culture, right? The traditions of Indonesia. You are also able to study culinary, you know, the making of food, the traditional food. So there are a variety of subjects, even traditional dances. You are able to choose from a variety of subjects that you'd like to study in Indonesia. So when I came to Indonesia for the first time in 2019 on the Dharma Siswa scholarship program, I studied Bahasa Indonesia and Budaya. And to be honest, I was very reluctant to learn the language at that time because I knew that if I come to Indonesia, it was a full-blown scholarship, right? So they gave you a monthly stipend. Everything was paid for you, accommodation, everything. And so I was really just there for the traveling. I want to travel to the different places.
To enjoy the time in Indonesia,
yes,
to go to Bali, yeah.
Bandung, all these places. And yes, I had the opportunity to go to, you know, Maluku Utara, the island of Tidore, Ternate, things like that. But what I didn't realize that is that the language of Bahasa Indonesian was going to be very, very important to me, especially because of my background and my lineage of where I come from. And because I have family in Indonesia, so it was going to become very important to me. And for the first time, when I went to Maluku Utara, when I visited the family in Tidore and Ternate, it was very difficult for me to communicate. Yes, I had a ball of a time. It was very comfortable over there, and I had a very nice time interacting with the family and getting to know them for the first time and meeting them for the first time. But it was very difficult for me to communicate with them,
because nobody can speak English in
because
Indonesia.
nobody over there could speak English. And so we would use Google Translate, you would type in the message and then you would press the audio and the Google Translate would talk for you. But it was fun because we made it fun to use Google Translate in order to communicate. So the Dharma Siswa scholarship program impacted me in such a way that it gave me an opportunity to learn the language in order to build that relation with the family in Indonesia, in order to communicate with them. I recently went back to the island of Ternate and Tidore now I recently went back to the island of Ternate and Tidore just a few months ago for Eid al-Fitr. Yeah? And I was able to communicate. That was after like about 4 years, 3 years. And obviously now, because I've been studying in Indonesia for so long, I've picked up on the language much more, right? And now that I went back, I was able to speak. And it built a very close bond between us because we were able to communicate.
And because
now.
you didn't have to use your phone.
And I didn't have to use my phone. So yes, it impacted me on a great level.
All right. What aspects of your culture do you find most important to share with others?
Well, my culture is very similar to, especially me being a Muslim from South Africa, my culture is very similar to that of Indonesian. So I don't think there's anything very different or something very unique that I'm able to share about my culture compared to the Indonesian culture because it's very similar. So yeah.
Let's talk about your community and connections. How do you engage with local community and build connections with fellow students?
Well, the first time I came to Indonesia, right? Before I even came to Indonesia, I was a very introverted person. I was a very shy person. I didn't like speaking out of turn. I didn't like being pushed to the front to communicate or, do interviews like this or podcast or become a moderator for certain
Yeah,
seminars.
you're doing this podcast because I
Yeah.
asked you to do it.
Yes, because it's not really I'm very introvert.
I had to get this girl out of her comfort zone to come and do this podcast with us. Obviously, I have a team who also encouraged her to do this. But yeah, I had to make some effort to get her today over here on this chair.
Yes. So I was very introverted, but having come to Indonesia and living here for quite a while, right? I was forced to become a bit extroverted. I was forced to do things on my own, and so I became more sociable. And when it comes to making connections with the community and building friendships within Indonesia, especially on campus, I use my social skills to interact with people, right? So a lot of my campus friends, those who are in my class, I would speak to them. I wouldn't be shy. We would help each other with work. We would go out often. We would go out maybe to, Anchor or those places. We'll go to the mall to watch a movie, or we will go window shopping, or we will really just go shopping, So that is how I build my connections, because without friends within a country that you are not originally from, it makes it very difficult.
Hard to live and get used to everything that happened. But when you first came to Indonesia, obviously there were a lot of international students as well. Was majority of your friends were Indonesian people or foreigners?
I think majority of my friends were Indonesian people. Okay. I think for me it was a bit more difficult for me to interact with the international students. It was easier for me to interact and befriend Indonesian students. So I have quite a lot of Indonesian students.
Friends.
Indonesian friends. I have quite a lot of Indonesian friends.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any cultural misconceptions you've encountered that you'd like to address? I mean, in the beginning we spoke about how people mistaking you as a Syrian or an Arab because of your skin color, and most of the time they think that South Africans are black skin or dark skin people. Mm-hmm. Any other cultural misconceptions you've encountered throughout the years that you've lived in Indonesia?
Yeah. So there is one, but I don't think it's really a cultural misconception, but it is kind of really, really outrageous and funny. But it is something that actually really gets asked. It's a question that gets asked. And a lot of people would ask me, since when they do find out that I'm from South Africa, a lot of people ask me, well, Fika, if you go back home in your home country, do you live in huts? Do you have lions as pets? Do you pick your food every day from the bushes, or do you like slaughter the animals to eat? And I'm like, no, that is outrageous. Because South Africa is very modernized. There's a lot of infrastructure. It is very, very modernized.
I mean, the amount of times African people get that question asked, do you walk to school like five miles a day, or like do people have to mail the water for you to the country?
It's kind of funny, but you won't even believe that it is a real question.
It is a real question that gets asked. Are the cultures of Muslim communities in Indonesia and South Africa differ or the same?
I would say it's the same.
It's the same.
It's the same. Seeing that the religion of Islam was brought to South Africa by Indonesian people, the culture, the Cape Malay culture within South Africa, especially the city of Cape Town, where I come from, it's very much the same. We celebrate Eid the same way, same rituals. You go to mosque in the morning, you meet up with your family, you visit your family during the day. I've already celebrated Eid with my friends here in Indonesia, and also with the family on the island of Tidore. And everything that they do is very similar. So it wasn't very difficult for me. I wasn't very
surprised.
Yeah, surprised. It was something that I was used to already.
All right. Let's talk about your future plans. What are your career aspirations, and how do they relate to your international experience?
Well, my career aspirations, I would really like to become a teacher, right? And I would really like to become a teacher in South Africa for the reasons that I feel like I have a lot of experience within Indonesia. Obviously, I'm going to be getting my degree within Indonesia. I've learned a lot from my Indonesian lecturers, my Indonesian friends. I've interacted with a lot of Indonesian people. I've experienced the way they live, the way they do things, how they live, right? And all these things can be taken as life lessons that I am able to use and influence maybe my students in South Africa with, because it's positive things, it's good things that I can take from Indonesia and influence those in South Africa.
So you plan to go back to South Africa?
I do plan to go back to South Africa, but I'm not really close-minded to any opportunities that arises if I'm given an opportunity to work in Indonesia.
Or anywhere else globally.
Or anywhere else globally. I'm not close-minded to it. Yeah, but I would like to return home first before I
talk about your cultural integration. How do you balance preserving your cultural identity while integrating into a new culture?
Culture. Like I said before,
not Islamic culture.
Islamic.
The South African culture. Obviously you're from South Africa. It doesn't mean that because your Islamic background is influenced by Indonesian Muslims, but obviously you have certain cultures from obviously you have certain South African cultures that you have to follow with your family.
Like in South Africa is very modernized. They follow the West a lot, right? So it's very westernized, and like Indonesia is much more of follows a traditional way of living, right? So coming to Indonesia as someone who has been living in such a community, a westernized community, it was very difficult for me to dumb down. Because when you do come from such a community, coming to Indonesia, interacting with Indonesian people who are very traditional, you have to dumb down, right? So I wouldn't say change the way I dress, but wear hijab every day because you are attending an Islamic university, right? The way you interact with your friends, right? In South Africa, when we meet up with our friends, the males will hug the females sometimes, like that. But in Indonesia, that is not permissible, right? So there was a lot of not cultural differences, but differences that I had to adapt to when coming from such a westernized place to a much more traditional place, right?
How has your experiences impacted your personal growth? In what ways has studying abroad shaped your personal growth and worldview?
So studying abroad has definitely made me become a much more assertive person, as I was very introverted previously, and I really didn't like interacting with people as much, and I wasn't very outspoken. So it forced me to become this outspoken person, to interact with people, build connections with people, so that it could benefit me, that it can benefit me in the future, right? When it comes to that is the changes that happen with my personal growth. I'm more of an independent person right now, because obviously when you come to Indonesia, living alone here, you have much more responsibilities. You have to do everything by yourself. So because of those things, you become very used to living by yourself and doing things by yourself, and you become more independent, and you become more, self-reliant. So in that way, I think my personal growth has developed. When it comes to my worldview, I think because I socialized or interacted with so many international people, not only Indonesians, but those international students who come from different countries, such as Canada, such as Gambia, such as Thailand, such as Malaysia even, and also Afghanistan. I get to interact with these people. I get to learn from these people when we are in conversation. So I get to know about what's happening in their country, and I'm able to form different opinions, perspectives, and I can just know about a lot of things that's happening worldwide.
All right. Are there any specific skills or qualities you've developed during this experience? Because you've lived alone for such a long time. You said you have to be very self-reliant. You have to do everything by yourself. Any skills that you have mastered?
I wouldn't say cooking is a skill that I've mastered, because I don't cook.
Oh, you don't cook?
I didn't really cook. I would say being able to socialize with people, because previously I was not a social person. I was very introverted. Now I'm able to, I can have a conversation with someone, and I can keep a conversation with someone for a very long time.
Yeah, okay.
If the opportunity arises or the time comes. So that is one skill, maybe.
Okay. You have the problem with food when you first came to Indonesia?
Food. Yes, definitely. When I first came to Indonesia and I started eating Indonesian food, I actually got sick for the first week, because my stomach was not used to the Indonesian cuisines that I was eating.
Very spicy.
Very spicy as well. And after that, I started eating takeouts, almost every day. So it was like McDonald's, KFC, Domino's, Pizza Hut, all those westernized restaurants I would eat from. I ate from them for a while. But then as I interacted with my friends, I visited friends, I attended certain seminars and conferences and, events. I obviously couldn't refuse the food that they were giving me, and so I started eating a lot of Indonesian food. And as I started eating, I gradually became used to it. And now I eat Indonesian food almost every day. It's delicious.
Your favorite Indonesian food? Give us three.
So nasi goreng. I love nasi goreng. I think that everyone loves nasi goreng.
Yeah, I think all people from abroad, they like nasi goreng, and I especially like nasi goreng kambing,
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah.
I prefer nasi goreng ayam.
Okay.
Or seafood.
Okay.
Yeah. I also enjoy eating mee goreng.
Mee goreng,
as well as, what else? Nasi padang. Nasi padang is my all-time favorite.
We're speaking about food. Look at everyone who's smiling over here because they're so happy.
Nasi padang.
Nasi
padang. It's my all-time favorite.
Okay, so next time we'll make a vlog where Wafika is going to take us to her favorite nasi padang restaurant.
Yes, definitely.
And we're going to try her favorite foods. Any foods from South Africa that you miss a lot? That you wish your mother was here to cook for you? Or somewhere that you could find it in a restaurant to eat.
Oh yeah, I really miss eating, bobotie, something that we call bobotie. It's also called...
Insert image, please.
Bobotie. It's also called a cottage pie. So it's basically mincemeat with mashed potato on top, and it's put into the oven until golden brown. It's very, very, very nice. And you eat it with yellow sweet rice. Like that. It's very, very nice. And you can have like sweet corn on the side. It's very nice.
Everyone's mouths are watering over here. Just look at her smiling.
And I also miss eating butter chicken.
Butter chicken.
Yeah.
Indian food.
It's Indian food. A lot of the foods within South Africa that we eat is very
influenced.
Influenced by, the Indian foods, like the curries, the akni, the biryani, things like that.
We must pay a visit to South Africa sometime, right?
Yeah.
And I think obviously Wafiko has to be there with us. Okay, so we've come to the end of the video. What advice would you give to other international students starting their academic journey abroad?
Abroad. So, if you are coming to Indonesia to study for the first time, don't come with a closed mind. You have to be very open-minded so that you can absorb as much of the education that you are getting as possible, right? If you come with a closed mind, it's not going to be possible. You're going to have to adapt with the environment. You're going to have to socialize with a lot of people. You're going to have to socialize with a lot of friends. And so you have to be open-minded and you need to be flexible so that um, you can mingle with everyone and you can be comfortable within this country and with the people that you're going to be studying with and working with. Also, one thing is that studying abroad might seem like fun and games, like, right? If you speak to any other international student, they will tell you about the good experiences, the times when they travel within the country. Most of the time, it is not the case. International students are studying, they are not sleeping, they are working very hard in order to get that degree or get the results that they would like to
Because
get.
when you before you come here, you always have this
Expectation.
amazing expectations and dreams that you will have a lot of fun and that you can travel all the time and it's
Yeah.
gonna be fine if you don't go to your classes and you have fun with your friends outside
Yes.
all the time. But it's not the case because you have to work very hard, and
Very
especially getting used to the language. It takes the longest time.
It takes
I
very
think
long.
even when you reach to the last stages of your journey studying, you still are not 100% qualified in the
In
with
the
the
language.
language. You still have so much more to learn. I've lived in Indonesia for 10 years now, but I think I have so much to learn because majority of the time I'm speaking at home with my parents in my mother tongue. So that's why I have to study so much more
Yeah.
when I'm outside with friends and I have to ask so many times what's the meaning of this word and what's
Yeah,
the meaning of
but
the other
you,
word.
you find it much more easier when you study the language with friends, right?
Yes.
When you're hanging out with friends.
Yes.
Than studying the language in the classroom.
In the classroom.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
because the slang language is so much more easier to learn than the
Yeah.
formal
Yes,
language.
But studying overseas does come with a lot of tears
Yes.
and stress and everything, but you should persevere. Don't stop doing what you're doing. Work hard and you will reap the fruits.
Yes. Now, the last question. How can universities better support the needs of international students? Let's just start with our own university.
Our own
What do you
university.
think?
Okay, so there's one thing that I've noticed within the University of Syarif Hidayatullah, right? They promote themselves as an international university, but majority of the lecturers over here cannot speak English, right? And for you to be an international university, you at least need to be able to speak basic English to help those international students with their projects, with the assignments, with their work. If they don't understand, you need to be able to help them, because likewise they are learning Bahasa Indonesian so that they can get through the study period over
And
here.
majority of the lecturers over here actually complain about the
Yeah.
fact that international students don't know how to speak the language before
Yes.
joining the class.
Yes, so that is actually one thing. And a lot of the times they expect us to, subjects like statistics. The statistics is mathematics. And imagine you learning mathematics or statistics in Bahasa Indonesian. That is extremely difficult because you will already only starting to learn a new language and you have to learn a subject such as statistics.
Yes.
That is very, very difficult for international students to do. Now, one thing is also that I would like to mention is that the Bahasa Indonesian classes that are provided by BIPA that are provided at this university as well. Personally, and also an opinion of various other international students, those classes are not sufficient for us international students that later on enter into this university to complete our undergraduate studies. Because when you sit inside of a classroom at university, the level of the language that they use in the classroom is
Very
way higher than the language that the Bahasa Indonesian that you learn
to
at
our
the
standard,
class.
to the standard of the
Yes.
Bahasa we know.
So it becomes very, very difficult.
All right.
So that is just something that they also need to improve.
All right. Thank you so much, Wafiko, for joining us today in today's podcast. We are so glad that we have such an amazing student at our university who is so influential. And today, our aim was to get all the South African people to come and watch our video. So, thank you so much for everyone who has watched our podcast until the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Until next time we meet with another international students. See you. Bye.